Welcome back, everyone, to the Squared Circle podcast. Andy here, bringing you all of the latest action from the world of professional wrestling. How's everybody doing? It's been a while. It's been over a month since the last TSC podcast. We've had Christmas, we've had New Year, so Happy New Year to you. Hope everybody had a great holiday season. And what a week to come back for the first show of 2024 right here at TSC as we're going to be looking at the Royal Rumble. Now, if you want to get in contact with us, you can do, as always, via social media. Hit us up on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TSC Wrestling Pod. You know, since the last show that we did, which was all about ECW's December to Dismember, we've had such a mass increase in terms of social media, and I really want to thank everyone who has subscribed to our YouTube channel at TSC Wrestling Pod. We are over 1,005 subscribers now. It's really tremendous, and I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you who subscribed, who has been watching the videos, who's commented, who's liked. It really does make it all the more worthwhile for each of us, for me, for Sam, for Lee, for all of us who are involved in the show each and every week. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. Let's address why we haven't done a show for a while. As we said last year, it's purely been down to work diaries and scheduling. Both Sam and I have got full-time paid jobs, can't always get the time to do this, and a lot of things happened towards the end of last year, which meant that my diary became really manically filled. So did Sam's. So we have to prioritize as you do. And this is ultimately the reason why. But I'm back. We're back. TSC is back. I'll be back next week with another show, and the week after that, and the week after that. So don't worry. TSC is now back. So what do we have coming up for you this week on the show? Well, it's all about the Royal Rumble. You may not have guessed. It happens this Saturday on the, WWE Network internationally here in the UK, and on Peacock in the US only until January 2025. More on that in just a second. We're going to be looking at the legacy of the Royal Rumble. We're going to be looking at Royal Rumble 1994 in our retro chat. We're going to be previewing the 2024 Royal Rumble, and we're going to be talking about TNA Wrestling. It's been back now for just under 4 weeks. We're going to be talking, how does that play? We're going to have a look at the top 10 Royal Rumble matches, in my opinion, and we've got wrestling history. It's a big one, but let's kick it off with the news. Will be after this. Check out All Elite Wrestling Explosion exclusively here at TSC. The bite-sized podcast released weekly will give you the breakdown for what has happened on Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. This quick stopping podcast will recap all of the slams, all of the body slams, and all of the side suplexes. All right, we're back with the news here at TSC. And, well, when I wrote the show plan, everything was done and dusted. But since that point, all heck has broken loose, because WWE, Monday Night Raw, and Netflix have now signed a deal, and Raw will be going to Netflix from January 2025 in the USA. You can watch Raw on Netflix in the US, in the UK, in Canada, and Latin America, with other international regions closely to follow. Now, the deal, if you want to know more about that, you can check the video, which is available on our YouTube channel, or you can listen to the audio podcast that has also been released. It was a mini breakdown, breaking news. But in summary, the deal is worth $5 billion for 10 years. That's $500 million per year. Netflix have an option to opt out after 5 years or extend for another 10 years at that point. But there's more, because not only is Monday Night Raw going to be going to Netflix, here in the UK, it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, the PLEs, and other content, which would have been on the network, so all other WWE related content, will be moving to Netflix from the same date. So realistically, what that means is the WWE Network is redundant. We don't know what's going to happen to it. $9.99 would get you the WWE Network. At the moment, we're looking at $17.99 for Netflix Premium, which is the family with 4K UHD. It's a really clever move by Netflix and by WWE. Once again, the company are groundbreaking. They're breaking the trend. They're breaking the mold. They are joining the streaming OTT market, which they're a pioneer of with the WWE Network, but they're moving cable TV shows to Netflix. Over 240 million Netflix subscribers globally. The UK is the second highest demographic in Netflix subscribers. That is going to basically open up the market for WWE. Now, I was trying to think about this because I've been a part of some forums on social media over the last 24, 48 hours since this news broke. And a lot of people are saying, well, I'm not going to buy Netflix. I'm not going to support Netflix. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do it. Fight TV is better. Wrestling is subjective, right? Wrestling fans, everybody has an opinion. And what you've got to remember is for WWE fans, this is amazing news. And actually, for wrestling fans in general, if you're a wrestling fan, you should be embracing this because this is the future. This is what is going to happen. AEW, apparently now, the discussions with WBD, as per the Eric Bischoff podcast, Strictly Business, it's going to be a hybrid. It'll be airing on Max and airing on TNT TBS. This is the way TV is moving, and WWE, as always, are at the forefront of this revolution. Now, it also means that I don't think there is a household in the UK that doesn't have access to Netflix, smart TVs, Rokus, Android Fire Sticks, Google Chromes, your laptop, iTunes, iPlayer, Android. Every device now has the ability to carry Netflix, which means that for however many billion people there are here in the UK, that is additional potential eyes on your product. It also means that WWE are not restricted to standard cable rules. They don't have to run it for 3 hours. They don't have to run it for 2 hours. They don't need to put ad breaks in if they don't want to. It doesn't even have to be on Monday night. The game is open. The field is wide open. And I'm really excited to see what is going to happen with professional wrestling on streaming. But I'm more intrigued to know what's going to happen to the WWE Network. I don't subscribe to it. I did do, but I found the layout quite awkward. In fact, I was talking to Dan Barnstall, the former TWS host, my former partner, who said, and I quote, since they did the revamp, you can't find anything on there. You can't find classic WCW content or ECW content. So he doesn't use it. All under one banner. Brilliant. Can't wait. January 2025. Let me know what you think in the comments below here on YouTube. Are you up for it? Are you pleased with the WWE moving to Netflix in 2025? Let me know. All right, other news this week, and the other big news story coming out, there's been three of them actually, is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is now on the board for TKO. Also managed to negotiate the rights to The Rock, so he now owns The Rock name. I'm not really sure why. I get why, because you've got the legacy, you can do your own merchandise, but he's established his own brand now as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I don't think you're going to suddenly see The Rock appear in credits of feature films, but for him, it's cool. On the board of directors as well, I think that's a great move by WWE and slash TKO. He's got that entrepreneurship spirit. He'll be able to go in and make a difference. WWE 2K24, the newest installment of the gaming series, has been officially announced. And this year, it's 40 years of WrestleMania, which means we have got 3 different covers. We've got Cody Rhodes, the standard, the Nightmare Pack. Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair share the deluxe, and then the Mania Pack, which looks beautiful. In fact, if you look on screen, we'll be putting some graphics up on YouTube of what those covers look like, and they look absolutely amazing. It's going to be released on Tuesday, the 5th of March for a worldwide release, followed by the standard edition on Friday, March the 8th. You can pre-order it already on Play Store and Xbox Marketplace. I've done it. But what is different? Well, 2K Showcase of the Immortals is now going to be 40 years of WrestleMania. It's captivated millions of fans around the globe as superstars become legends and spectacular moments. From Hogan slamming Andre at WrestleMania 3 to Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker at WrestleMania to the streak being broken by Brock Lesnar. You can literally Chronicle the legacy of WrestleMania, and you can do it in one game. I cannot wait. The Royal Rumble has been enhanced in terms of match types. There's backstage brawl, there's special guest referees, there's ambulance matches, there's casket matches. This could be the definitive game in professional wrestling, and I, for one, cannot wait. In fact, Jason Dempsey, my former Two Men and Their Mics co-partner, agrees with me. He's already pre-ordered it. I've already pre-ordered it. Cannot wait to play it, and we want to know what you think about the game. Again, right in the comments. And we'll be covering 2K24 right the way through to release with coverage, hopefully, pretty much every week. All right, in other news, Kazuchika Okada is leaving New Japan this month when his contract expires, and he has plenty of interest from AEW and WWE, although as of timing, he is yet to sign. Speaking to Tokyo Sports, Okada explained his decision to leave New Japan. He said, "First of all, my contract was up for 5 years this year. It was a good time for me to think about something. When I thought about whether I would sign another contract with New Japan, whether I would look at other worlds, I thought that maybe this was my last chance. And of course, the company talked to me about various things that I had been thinking for a while." Okada continued, "After announcing that I was quitting and going on tour, I felt too comfortable. I wondered what that would be like. I started my career in Mexico, came to New Japan, and became a rainmaker 12 years later. Maybe if I stay here, I can wrestle without inconvenience, but I don't want to become the same Okada without such hunger." Now, the belief is that Okada is signing with WWE due to his age and his relationship with Shinsuke Nakamura, who previously made the switch from New Japan to WWE. Okada has never worked for the Federation, but we're going to have to wait and see. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer noted both sides still believe they have a chance to sign him. That's AEW and WWE. Meltzer heard from people close to Okada who stated that he has yet to make a decision, but people in All Elite believe he is All Elite, while those in WWE think they have a good shot because of the legacy he could leave within the company. And you've got to think, with the news of Netflix that we covered earlier on, would it be the best move for him to go to WWE? Let's wait and see. Staying with New Japan, Tatsumi Naito stands at the top of the New Japan card as the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, but that doesn't mean he didn't sustain scars getting there. At the recent Wrestle Kingdom event where he defeated Sanada in the main event, he told the New Japan website that he sustained an eye injury that required 9 stitches after they collided heads in the process of hitting the signature Destino finisher. Will Kenny Omega need surgery? That is the question wrestling fans around the world are asking. In fact, that's the question Kenny Omega is answering, and we're going to get an answer soon enough. Dave Meltzer reported on the latest episode of Wrestling Observer that the cleaner will remain inactive for at least the next 7 weeks, and after that time, a decision will be made regarding whether or not surgery is required. It's expected that he will probably need it, although the hope is that he can heal with rest. The reason that Omega hasn't gone under the knife is because his situation was apparently so serious, surgery would have put him at risk. The rankings are back in All Elite. Tony Khan has officially announced that the commentary team during a collision main event between Eddie Kingston and Ortiz versus Danielson and Castagnoli, that the rankings are returning. He said the rankings are coming back to AEW going forward starting this month. He continued, AEW is having a very exciting January, and this is only the beginning of an amazing 2024 for AEW and our fans. You know, the rankings, yeah. Okay. It's a nice little thing for the rankings to be in. Okay. It's a nice little thing to make it a little bit more legit, to make it look a bit more competitive. But until they actually start utilizing the talent that they've got effectively, and I don't just mean bringing everybody in and then putting them on the sidelines, it doesn't really mean anything. So I'm kind of seriously hoping that we see some sort of a revamp in 2024 for AEW, that the rankings are the beginning, and that talent starts getting a fair shake of the whip. And, you know, I've been watching Dynamite and Collision quite a lot during the downtime, during the off period. And the one thing that's becoming more and more clear now is the need for this brand split, which I know they said they weren't going to do, but it is becoming more apparent we need it. You know, now you've got the crossover. Now you've got Christian on both Dynamite and Collision. Now you've got the Bucks on both. Now you've got FTR on both. Now you've got the BCC on both. Separate it. Break it up. Give those other guys a chance to have some sort of a spotlight. That is how you will create your next MJF, your next figurehead, your next breakout. At the moment, you can't do that the way they are currently booking it. Who am I? I'm just a podcaster. All right, that's your news for this week. When we're going to go to a quick break, when we come back, it's going to be The Viewpoint. We're going to be talking all about TNA Wrestling. I'll see you after this. Check out All Elite Wrestling Explosion exclusively here at TSC. The bite-sized podcast released weekly will give you the breakdown for what has happened on Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. This quick stopping podcast will recap all of the slams, all of the body slams, and all of the side suplexes. Welcome back to the Squared Circle. Andy here, as always, bringing you all the action this week. Already a jam-packed show with the news. We've been talking about Raw and Netflix. We've been talking about 2K24. But now it's time for Wrestling Viewpoint. And with this, what I want to do is talk about the rebrand of TNA. Now, it was back in November at Impact Wrestling where they made the announcement that TNA is effing back, man. And since that point, they've slowly been doing it. You know, they've been rebranding it. They've been coming back. And then this month was TNA Hard to Kill on pay-per-view. Wow. Do you know what? I got to say, you know, I was a TNA fan back in the day, you know, and that's well documented. Lee and I, when we did the original TSC, right the way through to TWS and Ministry of Slam and all that type of thing, you know, I was Impact. I was TNA. I loved the product. It was different. I love what they did in the Asylum. But there were always things with TNA that it was like a truck going down the road and it had gone too far down the one way. Then they were trying to turn it around, but it was taking too long to come back. This hard reset that they've done, and don't get me wrong, this is a hard reset, right? They're re-signing the guys. They've taken the branding back to 2008. They brought Cross the Line back for Impact. They've signed Nick Nemeth. They've got Killer Dane appearing at tapings. Simon Gotch appearing at tapings. Ash by Elegance, which is the former Dana Brooke, apparently has signed. Mansoor and Mace were backstage at the most recent set of Impact tapings. The look feels old school. The appearance looks like the Impact Zone. The commentators are doing a great job. The actual presentation of TNA felt fresh. It felt like an old friend was coming home. And that's taking nothing away from Impact. But the in-ring work has always been good at TNA. And for me, I'm loving it. I'm loving having that TNA Wrestling logo back on the screen, having the TNA Cross the Line music, which we're going to go out to. If you're listening to the audio podcast, that will be our going out theme tonight, will be TNA Cross the Line. It just is an old friend coming back home, and it's brilliant. And I'm so glad it's back. And I listened back in the archives and watched the show on here when the announcement was coming. I remember doing the show with Sam and kind of going, you know, you can't get lightning in a bottle twice, right? You can't do it. You can't recreate the past. Why? TNA hasn't been known as TNA for 13 years. It's been known as Impact. It's gone through a lot in that time. But lo and behold, I'll tell you what, they've done it. They have really achieved it. You can't forget the lineage of Impact Wrestling, but it is like TNA never went away. That takes a lot of work. And that is down to Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore, the mind for the business, and what he has done with TNA since becoming the president of it, under Anthem, has been unparalleled. He should be the one to get Booker of the Year at the Observer Awards. And I love Tony Khan, but D'Amore has done a great job. And D'Amore has done it under difficult circumstances, not having the budget, not having anything that Anthem have given him. But he has achieved it. And that is a testament to Scott D'Amore and to the guys at Impact. I'm so pleased for Impact Wrestling. I'm loving it. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. You can watch it, of course, on DAZN right the way through. Check out All Elite Wrestling Explosion exclusively here at TSC. The bite-sized podcast released weekly will give you the breakdown for what has happened on Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. This quick stopping podcast will recap all of the slams, all of the body slams, and all of the side suplexes. Welcome back to the Squared Circle. This Saturday, or tonight, if you're watching it or listening to this as we release it, it's the Royal Rumble, the kickoff event on the road to WrestleMania, and one of the pinnacle events in the WWE calendar. Over the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about the legacy of the Royal Rumble. Does it still stand the test of time? Personally, for me, this is one of my favorite events of the year because it's different, right? Survivor Series, when it was first launched and it was the traditional 5-on-5 and the elimination matches, made it different. Mainly it was always the grandeur, it was always the spectacle. Same with SummerSlam. But Rumble was the one match that you don't want to get changed. And seeing the 30-man, 30-woman Royal Rumble match, you have that little bit of suspension of disbelief. I mean, when you consider this event was the brainchild of Pat Patterson, the late great WWE Hall of Famer, and was a TV special on the USA Network in October of 1987, a house show. And it was on the USA Network on a TV special on January the 24th of 1988. That was it. It was a TV special. You know, you can imagine USA Network's going to events. We got 2 hours to fill. What are you going to give us? And Pat going, oh, why don't we have 20 men and throw them over the top rope and see if their feet hit the floor? That's a really bad Pat Patterson impression. Sorry. But it proved so popular that the following year, it went pay-per-view. And that's where it's been ever since. And this Saturday is the 37th Royal Rumble event. What is it, though, about the Royal Rumble that makes it so unique? Part of it, I think, is because you just don't know the order. Most things in professional wrestling, you can work out, right? Yeah, we know. If you've got a Roman Reigns championship match, we pretty much know who's going to win. If you've got Jobber going against somebody else, you pretty much know who's going to win. If you look at long-term booking, you can pretty much work out who's going to win. But the Royal Rumble is still that little bit of suspension of disbelief because 9 out of 10 times you don't know who's coming out as number 1. You don't know who's coming out at number 27, which is the optimal Royal Rumble number. And you don't know who is coming out at number 30. But more than that, you don't know who's in the Royal Rumble because only certain ones get announced. Like we know Cody Rhodes is in, we know Drew McIntyre's in, we know CM Punk is in, we know Kofi Kingston is in. We can imagine Gunther's in the Royal Rumble, right? Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be in the Rumble, but we don't know. Are there going to be legends coming back? The Rock is joining the TKO board of directors. Could we hear, if you smell what The Rock is cooking? Could we hear that? And The Rock struts down the aisle. Could we hear No Chance in Hell? And Vince McMahon makes his return. Could we hear Sweet Chin Music and the Heartbreak Kid? Who from NXT could be coming up? What legends are returning? What future champions are coming out? What order? But that's what I love about the Rumble. For 60 minutes, you sit there going, who's next? And then when that buzzer goes, if you've got a group of people watching it, it's the bet. Who's coming out next? Where is this person? And then you get to the final 4. At that point, you can pretty much work out who's going to win the Royal Rumble. I think last year was pretty obvious. It was going to be Cody Rhodes. This year, though, it's not. Because this year you've got legitimately Drew McIntyre, an option to win it. CM Punk, who is a good shout to win it. And Cody Rhodes, who is the optimal option to win it, right? You cannot call it. That's what I love about the Rumble. And then when they brought the Women's Royal Rumble in, which actually, I didn't realize this, but that kicked off in 2018, was the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. And it's been going every year since then. Doesn't seem that long ago, but that is going to be 7 Royal Rumbles as of this Saturday. And it just adds another layer of intrigue. Don't change the Rumble match, and I'm so glad they haven't. It's the one thing that I love going back and watching the classic Rumbles on the WWE Network or on YouTube. Like they just put up the Rumble match for the 1994, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on today. And lots of companies have tried to emulate the Royal Rumble. If we look at WCW and we look at World War III, where that was 90 men and it was 3 rings, same sort of format as the Rumble. It didn't work though. And the question has to be why? Because you can't copy an original. And that's what this was. The Rumble was such a unique concept. Every 2 minutes or every 90 seconds, another entry will enter the Rumble. Both feet thrown over the top rope, and both feet must hit the floor. It is just tremendous. And one of the points I had on here was, is it too much having both men's and women's? Oh, yes and no, right? Spacing the Rumbles out, it works. So if you have the women's at the beginning and the men's at the end, I think that works. Don't do them too close together. And I'm going to sound really sexist here, and I don't mean to, but always put the women first and then put the men at the end. Because when you go to Mania, you're more interested, maybe changing, you're more interested in the men's championship match main event than potentially you are in the women. But the women have given us some standout moments. Rhea Ripley last year entered #1 and won it all. Only 3 people have done that on the men's side. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit, and the Rated R superstar, Edge. And you always know you're at Rumble season when they bring the by the numbers, which we cannot play because we will get taken down. But the by the numbers, and it's just, it's just got something about the Rumble. I don't know what it is, but my bugbear with the Rumble, I've got one bugbear. Why do they point to the sign? We all know they're going to WrestleMania. Why do they need to sit there and point at some stupid fluorescent sign, which they do every year? Don't get it. Now, we know you're going to WrestleMania, right? We know you're going to win the Rumble. You're going to go to Mania. You don't need to point at the sign. Please. Rant over. I don't know what else to say about the Rumble. The Rumble is up there. It's the biggest pay-per-view of the year. It's how you kick off a wrestling calendar. And, I'm a big fan of AEW and I'm a big fan of TNA and I'm a big fan of Ring of Honor and New Japan, but nothing compares to the Rumble. Just sitting there, hearing the announcers go, these are the rules of the Royal Rumble. And in the old school pay-per-views, like if you go back to 1990, they used to do these vignette packages where all the superstars were backstage. And it was like quick fire, why they were going to win the Royal Rumble. That got you really pumped up. And then, of course, 1995, Pamela Anderson made her way, that really uncomfortable scene with the Heartbreak Kid. It's just amazing. But is it the best concept in pro wrestling? Absolutely. You can't replicate the Royal Rumble. And when they did try and replicate the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, it didn't work because the Rumble is the Rumble. It should happen in January and it should be 30 men. It doesn't need to be 40 men. That was too much. The 30-man Royal Rumble is just right. It's a great hour of television. It's a great hour of streaming. Netflix, January 2025. It is just amazing. I don't know what else to say. I wish I had somebody here to bounce off because it's just one of those topics that you could talk about for hours, but I'm in love with the Royal Rumble. It's the best pay-per-view in professional wrestling. And I can't wait for this Saturday. I cannot wait to sit and watch the Royal Rumble on pay-per-view. A premium live event on the WWE Network here in the UK, internationally, or on Peacock in the USA. We're going to give you the full preview of the Royal Rumble coming up. But let me know what you think of the Rumble. What's your highlights? What do you like most about it? Leave them in the comments. Right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, it's Rumble Recall. In my opinion, we're going to be deep diving into the top 10 Royal Rumble, I said WrestleMania then, Royal Rumble matches of all time after this. Check out All Elite Wrestling Explosion exclusively here at TSC. The bite-sized podcast released weekly will give you the breakdown for what has happened on Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. This quick stopping podcast will recap all of the slams, all of the body slams, and all of the side suplexes. Welcome back to the Squared Circle. Currently on the show, we have talked about WWE 2K24. We have talked about TNA. We've talked about the legacy of the Rumble. Now, we're going to talk about the top 10 Royal Rumble matches in history. And this is my opinion, my list. There's only me here. For each match, we're going to let you know the winner, the final four, and who was the longest entry and the most eliminations. And we're going to kick it off with number 10. I'm going to take you all the way back to the third Royal Rumble. Took place in 1990 from Orlando, Florida. The winner was the immortal Hulk Hogan. The final three was Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, and the Mighty Hercules. Now, Ted DiBiase was the longest entry. He was in there for 44 minutes and 47 seconds, and it was a combination of Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior who had the most eliminations, 6 each. Now, the 1990 Royal Rumble had a lot of star power involved. It had the Hitman, it had Shawn Michaels, it had Jake Roberts, it had the Macho Man. Ooh, yeah. It had Ted DiBiase, it had Roddy Piper, Andre, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, the Warrior, Mr. Perfect, and Rick Rude. And it's one of the most star-studded, and all of the ingredients led to this being a hot match with the crowd literally going nuts for everything. It was full of storylines, crazy eliminations, bumps, and even callbacks to the previous year, with DiBiase unable to buy the number 30. Hogan, as we know, would go on to win the match, but arguably there were many within that final four that could have done. And it's also famous for that first time face-to-face between Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, which set the scene for WrestleMania 6 in Toronto at the Sky Dome. Power, Warrior versus Hogan, title for title, the Ultimate Challenge. Next on the list goes back to 2002. The winner was the Game Triple H, and the final four was Kurt Angle, Mr. Perfect, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. The entry with the longest time was Steve Austin with 26 minutes and 16 seconds, and the most eliminations, again, was a combination between Steve Austin and The Undertaker. Now, the 2002 Rumble was littered with main eventers, certifiable main eventers, and iconic legends. Austin competed in his final Royal Rumble match of his career, and he was aiming for his fourth triumph in 6 years. The Undertaker had never won a Rumble at that point, and he was the reigning hardcore champion. But it was Maven who dashed his hopes of winning by doing the surprise elimination. And that amazing moment, if you watch it, with that drop kick, sending the Undertaker over the top rope, both feet hitting the floor. This was also the Rumble where Triple H returned from that serious quad injury, and he joined the fray as entry number 22. He formed a unit with Austin, but nonetheless, Mr. Perfect returned as the 25th, and he rolled back the years by reaching the final three. The Game's victory was no shock. He actually eliminated Kurt Angle over the top to book his spot in the main event of WrestleMania 18. Number 8 on the list goes back to 2009. This was won by Randy Orton, the final four being Dashing Cody Rhodes, Ted DiBiase from Legacy, and Triple H. The longest entry was Triple H with 50 minutes dead, and the most eliminations was 6, and that was Triple H and The Big Show. This match belonged to the Viper, and obviously to his legacy lapdogs, Cody and DiBiase. Randy Orton entered the match in 8th place, and when he seemed to be in trouble, it was the two lackeys helping him out. Rob Van Dam returned to the WWE for a one-night appearance after being away for almost 2 years. The Undertaker also had a solid outing, lasting almost 30 minutes, but the main storyline was Hunter and Randy. It was Orton who got the better of Triple H to win the Rumble for the first time in his career. Number 7 on the list is more recent. It's 2018. It was won by Shinsuke Nakamura. The final four was Roman Reigns, John Cena, and the Demon Finn Balor. The longest entry was Finn Balor with 57 minutes and 38 seconds. And again, the most eliminations was a co-win. Roman Reigns and Finn Balor each got 4. Now, this wasn't the only Royal Rumble on the card. As we said previously, the women's also debuted. But the males produced a spectacular Rumble match, which was arguably the best that WWE produced that decade. Reigns was the overwhelming favorite to win for the second time in his career, but it didn't happen. Orton and Cena were also involved in the latter stages, but it was Shinsuke who prevailed in his debut Rumble appearance by eliminating Reigns. And the final four for that, as we said, was Roman Reigns, John Cena, and Finn Balor. All right, more Rumbles coming up. Number 6 on the list goes back to 2008, which was won by John Cena. You can't see me. The final, what is wrong with me and impressions today? The final four was the game Triple H, the Animal, Batista, and the Big Red Machine, Kane. The entry with the longest time in the Rumble was Batista with 37 minutes and 46 seconds. Triple H had the most eliminations in this Rumble with 6, and it was spectacular, this match. The winner and the runner-up from the previous Rumble, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, got things underway. They dominated the first half of the Rumble, but were no longer involved in the business end. Former Rumble winners Triple H and Batista were involved. They were determined to add another Rumble to their collection, but this one is remembered for John Cena returning ahead of schedule from injury as the 30th entry. It was a brilliant moment, and Cena executed the double A on Triple H to win the Rumble for the very first time in his career. Halfway through the list now, number 5, we're actually going to go back to the Rumble from 2020. This was COVID. In a bizarre build-up, WWE Champion Brock Lesnar entered the match as he was the number 1 entry, and that he dominated the first half of the Rumble match. The Beast Incarnate eliminated a staggering 13 competitors in the Rumble, but Drew McIntyre received a huge pop when he halted the dominance of the Beast. The roof almost blew off the Minute Maid Park, with Edge returning to action for the first time in 9 years. The Rated R superstar reached the final 4 before Roman Reigns eliminated him. Ultimately, the night belonged to McIntyre, who won an outstanding Royal Rumble match at the expense of the big dog. McIntyre would then go on to WrestleMania, which was under pandemic rules, nobody there, and would win the WWE Championship. Amazing. Number 4, we're going to go back to 2001. This time it was Stone Cold Steve Austin who won the Royal Rumble. The final 4 was The Kane, The Rock, and Billy Gunn. Yeah, this is why I love the Rumble. The longest time for an entry was Kane at 53 minutes and 46 seconds. And he also had the most eliminations with 11. And this, undoubtedly, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the greatest Royal Rumble matches in WWE history. They produced 3 strong pay-per-views to kick off 2001, and the Rumble match was one of them, and WrestleMania X17 was the last one. Kane was the MVP. He had one of the best performances in his entire Hall of Fame career. He entered the match in 6th position, and he was completely dominating, eliminating 11 competitors, a record that actually stood for over 13 years. The Rock, The Undertaker, and Stone Cold were the other elite level talents that challenged Kane, but ultimately the battle came down to Kane and Stone Cold, and a few brutal chair shots aided Austin to become the first and only man to win a trio of Rumble matches. It was an amazing pay-per-view, amazing match. I remember 2001. It's like the golden era of professional wrestling. Number 3 on our list, we're going to go back to 2004. Controversial one, this one. I'm picking it because it was a good Royal Rumble match, not because of who won it. The winner was Chris Benoit. The final 4 was The Big Show, Kurt Angle, and Chris Jericho. The entry with the longest time in the Rumble match was Chris Benoit, going over an hour, and he also had the most eliminations. This match produced only the 2nd time at that point a winner had won from the number 1 position, but there was a lot more going on in the historic achievement. The IC champion Randy Orton looked like gold here, and his rival Mick Foley stole Test's spot and eliminated Orton and himself from the match. Moreover, the WWE champion Brock Lesnar planted Goldberg with a jaw-dropping F5. Kurt Angle took advantage and eliminated Goldberg from the match. The action in this one didn't stop. It was jam-packed for the entire Rumble, but understandably, as we said, it's hard for some fans to revisit, which is such a shame, because ultimately it brought out one of the best moments in WrestleMania history at WrestleMania 20, with both Benoit and Guerrero celebrating in the ring. Number 2 on the list. This is it with the final countdown, the final stretch. I can't do a Rumble countdown list without going back to the Royal Rumble 1992. The winner was, of course, the Nature Boy, woo, Ric Flair. The final four was Sid Justice, Hulk Hogan, and the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Ric Flair was the entry with the longest time, going in for over an hour. In fact, it was 1 hour and 2 seconds. And Sid Justice eliminated the most with 6. Now, although the winner of the 1992 Royal Rumble match wasn't awarded a championship shot, that didn't kick in until 1993. They were competing for the first time ever for the vacant WWE Championship. This is arguably, and this was a very close call between this one and number one, the greatest Rumble match in history. It was stacked with former champions. The Undertaker, Hogan, Randy Savage, Flair, Piper. But the Nature Boy stole the show as the third entry and endured an hour to win the championship after eliminating Psycho Sid. That leads us on to number one. Which Royal Rumble match out of 36 years did I think was the greatest Royal Rumble match in history? Well, I'm going to go back to 2007. The winner was The Undertaker. The final four was the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, Edge, and the Viper, Randy Orton. Edge had the longest amount of time at 44 minutes and 2 seconds, but the most eliminations went to the Great Khali, who took 7. For the very first time, this pay-per-view featured performers from Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. It was the most perfectly executed Rumble match. It was unpredictable to see which way it was really going to go. Rated RKO worked as a cohesive unit. Of course, that was Edge and Randy Orton, until they were both eliminated by the Heartbreak Kid. In the closing stages, Michaels and The Undertaker mixed it up, and they produced magic, with Undertaker wearing the proverbial crimson mask. The Undertaker stopped his fellow Texan to become the first man to win the Rumble as the 30th entrant at that time. Of course, that would change later on with John Cena. So that is my countdown of the top 10 Royal Rumble matches in history. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments across social media and, of course, here on YouTube. We're going to go for one more break. When we come back, it's time to preview this Saturday's 2024 edition of the Royal Rumble. I'll see you in a minute after this. Check out All Elite Wrestling Explosion exclusively here at TSC. The bite-sized podcast released weekly will give you the breakdown for what has happened on Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. This quick stopping podcast will recap all of the slams, all of the body slams, and all of the side suplexes. Welcome back to the Square Circle. I was going to say welcome back to the Royal Rumble. Andy here, of course, and we're about to preview this Saturday's Royal Rumble, which takes place on the WWE Network here in the UK or on Peacock in the US. As of recording, only 4 matches have been announced. So you've got my predictions and you've got Sam's. Let's get on with it. The WWE United States Championship is first. Logan Paul defending against Kevin Owens. Of course, Logan Paul, who beat Rey Mysterio, now challenging Kevin Owens for the WWE US Championship. Sam has gone with Kevin Owens. It's a good shot, and it's 50-50, right? I mean, I can't see them taking the US title off Logan Paul at this point. In fact, I can see both of these guys playing double duty and going into the Royal Rumble and seeing Logan Paul perform another death-defying, high-flying move like he did, last year. So Sam's gone Kevin Owens. I've gone Logan Paul to retain. Next up, the Fatal 4-Way for the WWE Championship. Roman Reigns defending against the phenomenal AJ Styles, Randy Orton, and LA Knight. Yeah. Look, we talked earlier on about how wrestling matches can be easy to kind of analyze. And I can't see how you can go any other way apart from Roman Reigns. This is heading to WrestleMania. Now, it's either going to be Roman Reigns versus The Rock to headline Mania, which potentially could happen, or it's going to be the end of the story, which is Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes. I've got this funny feeling that because of WWE 2K24, because of this heavy tagline of finishing the story, and with Cody being on the cover, I'm going actually with Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, with Cody winning the title at WrestleMania, which means it makes pure sense for me to say Roman Reigns. Sam hasn't quite thought of it like that. He has gone with Roman Reigns purely because it's Roman Reigns, and they're not going to take the title off him before WrestleMania, which makes sense. So both of us have gone for Reigns to retain. However, I think if you want to talk about MVP of the night, that is going to be LA Knight. Yeah. 30 woman Royal Rumble match. This is where it's open. It's open, right? At the moment, the only ones announced as of taping is the man Becky Lynch, Nia Jax, Bayley, and Bianca Belair. I've gone Becky Lynch. I think the man is on course to win it. And they're going to have a showdown between her and Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. That's the main event for me, for the women. Sam has gone Shayna Baszler. You know, it's a good shout, but they've not done anything with Baszler. I don't think that Baszler's got a shot. I think it's going to be either someone like the man or Nia Jax. I've just got this feeling they're putting a lot of momentum under Nia Jax. She could win it. But the question is who's going to return, because you've got to think that Cora Jade not being injured on NXT, she would have been called up for the Rumble. Nikita Lyons could have been called up to the Rumble. Roxanne Perez. You know, you've obviously got Candice LeRae. You've got Indy Hartwell on the main roster. Natalia, Tegan Knox. Could someone who's been released, could Tennille Dashwood come back for a one-off as Tennille Dashwood, not as Emma? Could Trish Stratus make an appearance in the Royal Rumble? Could Alexa Bliss come back? Not sure when she's due back from mat leave, but she's had the baby. Could Alexa Bliss come back for a one night? This is the fun of the Rumble, guys. Nobody knows who's coming. But as of now, Sam has gone Shayna, and I've gone for the man Becky Lynch. The men's Royal Rumble. Now, this to me is a two-horse race. So as we know, and I've already said, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Gunther, Damian Priest, and Kofi Kingston have all officially declared entry into the Royal Rumble. For me, this is a Cody Rhodes win. Has to be. This has to be how he finishes his story. Sam has gone CM Punk, and I think both options are valid, and they're the most logical way to go. So if you were Triple H, would you do a swerve and do Drew McIntyre? Maybe. Cody Rhodes, I think, is odds-on favourite to win the Rumble. Just for the reasons that I said a few seconds ago. They need to finish the story for Cody Rhodes. It needs to happen at WrestleMania. So I'm going Cody Rhodes, and Sam is going CM Punk. I mean, really, I don't care who wins this one. It's going to be a cracker of a match. All right, let's have a look at what happened this week in wrestling history. Covering the week of the 21st of January to the 27th of January. Kicking off with January the 22nd, 2018. Monday Night Raw celebrated its 25th anniversary with a unique show taking place over two venues, featuring a plethora of legends from past and present. The main part of the show went down at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and it featured The Miz defeating Roman Reigns for the Intercontinental Championship 5 years ago. The supplementary part of the show took place at the Manhattan Center in New York, the original site of Raw back in 1993. That portion of the program featured a match between Bray Wyatt and Woken Matt Hardy. I remember 25th anniversary of Raw. It was a great show. But just think, Roman Reigns being defeated by The Miz for the IC title 5 years ago. Wow. January the 23rd, 1984 is a day going down in history as the moment that Hulkamania, brother, was born, as Hulk Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik in Madison Square Garden to win the first of his WWF Championship reigns. He would hold onto the belt for over 4 years. January the 24th, 1998, WCW Sold Out took place at the Hara Arena in Dayton, Ohio. The main event saw Lex Luger defeat the Macho Man Randy Savage. On the same night, Chris Jericho won the WCW Cruiserweight title with a win over Rey Mysterio Jr. Moving forward 1 year later, January the 26th of 1999, WWF Halftime Heat aired during the halftime of the NFL Super Bowl on the USA Network. Now, this program was made to be counter-programming to the halftime show. It featured one match, Mankind versus The Rock for the WWF Championship in an empty arena match that was taped earlier in the day in Tucson, Arizona. January the 27th, 1992, saw WWE tape the 30th edition of Saturday Night's Main Event in Lubbock, Texas. The show aired on February the 8th and notable for two prominent character turns. In a tag match against The Undertaker and Ric Flair, Sid Justice walked out on Hulk Hogan and turned heel, setting up the main event of WrestleMania 8. Later in the show, after a match between the Macho Man and Jake Roberts, The Undertaker stopped his former ally Roberts from attacking Miss Elizabeth, making The Undertaker go face for the first time and setting up that match with Roberts also at Mania 8. And lastly, this week in wrestling history, January the 27th, 1993, one of the biggest names in professional wrestling of all time, the legendary Andre the Giant, passed away as a result of heart failure in Paris, aged 46. He was soon named as the first ever inductee of the WWF Hall of Fame. And that's this week in wrestling history. We're going to go to a final break of the night. When we come back is Retro Chat, talking all about the 1994 Royal Rumble. See you then. Check out All Elite Wrestling Explosion exclusively here at TSC. The bite-sized podcast released weekly will give you the breakdown for what has happened on Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. This quick stopping podcast will recap all of the slams, all of the body slams, and all of the side suplexes. Welcome back to the Squared Circle, and this is Retro Chat, where we're going to be looking back at the 1994 WWF Royal Rumble. It took place on January the 22nd, 1994 at the Providence Civic Center. And this match, this event was the final Royal Rumble held on a Saturday until the 2022 event. There were 6 matches contested, including one dark match. And for the 1993 Royal Rumble onwards, the winner would receive a shot at the champion at WrestleMania. And then that time, it was for Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9. For this year, the winner would win a WWE Championship shot against Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10. The main event of the Royal Rumble match saw Lex Luger and the Hitman Bret Hart named as co-winners after simultaneously, Bret's feet touched the floor first. The undercard saw Yokozuna defeat The Undertaker in a casket match to retain the World Championship, and the Quebecers, Jacques and Pierre, now known as PCO, defeated the Hitman Bret Hart and Owen to retain the WWF Tag Team Championship, and we had the heel turn of Owen Hart. And the bad guy, Razor Ramon, defeated IRS to retain the Intercontinental Championship. So how did this pay-per-view come to be? Well, the first televised match of the pay-per-view was actually scheduled to be Ludwig Borger versus the Native American Tatanka. The two were engaged in a feud that began prior to the Survivor Series of 1993. And if you remember correctly, Tatanka had been undefeated in the WWF and lost his first match on October the 30th to Ludwig Borger. That happened on an episode of Superstars that was taped on September the 28th. Borger hit Tatanka with a steel chair while the ref was distracted. After the results of storyline injuries from the attack and beating he suffered at the hands of Borger, Tatanka was forced to miss the main event match at Survivor Series. Tatanka would get some revenge, though, as he defeated Borger by DQ on December the 20th episode of Raw. But the bitterness between those two competitors remained. Now, Ludwig Borger suffered a legit injury and was replaced by Bam Bam Bigelow. Although the substitution took place shortly before the event, Bigelow and Tatanka did have a heated rivalry. In '93, Bigelow cut Tatanka's dyed red hair as an insult to his lumpy heritage. The two faced each other as part of a 6-man tag team match at SummerSlam, and the feud continued even after Tatanka's team emerged victorious. We also saw at Survivor Series the tag team elimination match between the Hitman and his brothers and Shawn Michaels and his Knights. Owen Hart was eliminated during this match when he crashed into his brother Brett, who at the point was walking along the ringside apron. It caused Owen to lose his focus and get pinned by Shawn Michaels. After the match, Owen interrupted the brothers' victory to verbally attack Brett. He demanded a match with the Hitman. Brett refused, and the brothers reunited over Christmas, the season of goodwill and joy to all men, and they decided to team up and go after the World Tag Team titles, and that took place at the Rumble. The plan was put on hold when Jannetty and the 1-2-3 Kid won the bout, but the Quebecers won the rematch the following week, guaranteeing that the Hearts would get their shot at the Rumble. Razor Ramon and IRS began feuding prior to SummerSlam because of an angle in which Money Inc., the tag team made up of Ted DiBiase and IRS, teased the bad guy about losing to Sean Waltman, then known as the 1-2-3 Kid, who at the point was a newcomer, and that episode of that match took place on Raw. The rivalry continued to heat up when IRS stole the gold chains while Shawn Michaels had Razor Ramon distracted. Ramon and IRS agreed to settle the feud at the Rumble with the IC Championship on the line. Another match that began at Survivor Series was Yokozuna and The Undertaker. Yokozuna was made to be pushed as this unstoppable Polynesian monster. He'd already gone through Hulk Hogan at King of the Ring. He had already destroyed the Hitman Bret Hart at WrestleMania 9. He just decimated the Macho Man Randy Savage at the Rumble in that 30-man match. And of course, he had defeated Made in the America, Made in the USA, Lex Luger at SummerSlam. At Survivor Series, Yoko was unable to inflict any sort of damage on The Undertaker during the elimination match. Taker had his head slammed into the steel steps leading up to the ring, but as always, the Phenom was unharmed. Yokozuna used his finishing move, Banzai, on The Undertaker. When he tried to repeat it, however, The Undertaker became the first wrestler to do his trademark sit-up. This would set up The Undertaker getting a shot at the Royal Rumble for the WWF Championship in a casket match because Yokozuna was scared to death of going into a casket. Lex Luger wanted to participate in the Royal Rumble match because, as we said, the winner would get a shot at the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 10. The contract he had signed for his title shot at SummerSlam stated he would not receive a rematch if he failed to win the title. A compromise was reached between WWF President Jack Tunney, allowing Luger to compete. Yoko's manager, Mr. Fuji, was allowed to bring in two wrestlers, Genshiro Tenryu and the Great Kabuki, to hurt Luger's chances of winning. So there's your build-up to the Royal Rumble. Let's get to the matches. The first televised match was between Tatanka and Bam Bam Bigelow. Bigelow tried to attack the Native American before the bell, but Tatanka moved, and they literally went back and forth in this match. After the two hit each other with simultaneous crossbodies, the Native American began a war dance. Bigelow kicked Tatanka in the back of the head to regain the advantage, missed a moonsault attempt from the top, allowing the Native American to perform a crossbody and get the victory. This match was then followed by the tag team title match, as we talked about, between the Hitman and the Rocket, and of course, the Quebecers. The match seemed to be going the Hitman and Owens' way. Brett, however, got injured, kayfabe, with his leg, which meant that Brett wouldn't tag in Owen Hart. He went to apply the sharpshooter. He wasn't able to stand. The referee stopped the match because Brett was unable to continue, and he awarded the victory to the Quebecers. Now, the post-match of this is where it really gets interesting because Owen Hart went nuts. Owen was screaming at Brett for not tagging out of the match. He turned out from Brett from kicking his injured leg out from under his other injured leg and leaving him lying in the ring. Now, this did leave fans with a question. Would the Hitman make it to the Rumble match itself? And bear in mind, these guys are performing double duty. What happened next, if you can ever get the audio of this, is brilliant if you watch it on the pay-per-view. Owen Hart then went backstage for an interview with Todd Pettingill, where he conducted a promo with snot hanging down from his nose where he famously got tongue-tied saying he kicked Brett's leg from under his leg. It's a great promo, and it's just, again, another example of how good Owen Hart was, because it didn't phase him. He just did it, delivered it. Todd Pettengill was a professional as always, but it did set up Owen Hart as this monster heel, which of course would begin the feud right the way through to WrestleMania, right the way through to SummerSlam of 1994, right the way to the Survivor Series, when Brett was challenging Bob Backlund for the championship. Next up, we had our second championship match of the evening. This was the Intercontinental title. At this point, Jim Ross and Gorilla Monsoon, who were on Radio WWF, took over from Vinnie Mac and the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. The match was a brawl. Shawn Michaels at one point ran to the ring with his fake icy belt and hit Ramon with it. Shyster helped to revive Joey Morella, the late great Joey Morella, to count the pinfall. It appeared that IRS had won his first singles championship in the WWF, but referee Earl Hebner came to the ring, explained the situation, and when Michaels' belt was discovered, the match was restarted. Ramon simply grabbed IRS, performed the Razor's Edge, and got the pin. Razor Ramon walked out of Rumble, still Intercontinental Champion, setting up that iconic match at WrestleMania 10, ladder match. Champion versus title, title versus title, real versus fake, Michaels versus HBK, Michaels versus Razor Ramon, which I am sure you're going to be able to play on 40 years of WrestleMania as part of WWE 2K24. Our next preliminary match was the casket match between Yokozuna and The Undertaker. Basically, the way this match would work was the opponent who put the competitor even, who put his opponent in the casket and shut the lid, would be the winner. This was the Undertaker's match, and they billed it as such. Yokozuna was deathly afraid of the casket, and they played that. At one point, we had a whole plethora of heels hitting the ring. We had Bam Bam Bigelow, Crush, The Great Kabuki, Genichiro Tenryu, Bam Bam Bigelow. We also had Adam Bomb, Jeff Jarrett, the Head Shrinkers, Samu and Fatu, and Diesel. Eventually, Yokozuna and his allies were able to shut The Undertaker in the casket to end the match. We then had one of the most out of this world situations we'd seen at that point in the WWF. The lights, the pyro, and what looked like The Undertaker rising from the casket up into the crowd. And what it happened to be was Marty Jannetty dressed as The Undertaker. Then it was a big one. Then it was the Royal Rumble match. It kicked off with Scott Steiner and Head Shrinker Samu. Then the brother of Scott came out, Rick. Several ongoing feuds came into play. Crush and the Macho Man Randy Savage, which again, of course, would be settled at WrestleMania 10. Bam Bam and Doink the Clown. Doink had annoyed Bigelow with a series of pranks in late 1993. We had the match at the Survivor Series. They would go on to have a match at WrestleMania 10. And it was Bigelow who eliminated Doink. The Rumble match also saw an old feud as Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, former tag partners as the Rockers, traded a series of punches. When Jannetty entered the match, Michaels ultimately eliminated him from the thing. Now, due to being beat up by Owen Hart earlier in the evening, there was a question as if Bret Hart would make an appearance. That question was answered when Hart kayfabed to the ring as the 27th entry in the Royal Rumble match. The final four was Shawn Michaels, Bret the Hitman Hart, and Lex Luger, along with Fatu. The four sized each other up. Bret Hart eliminated Fatu, while Luger took care of Michaels. We then had a back and forth. We had Luger and Hart in a bear hug. Both men went over the top rope, and both feet apparently hit the floor at the same time. Two referees argued over who had won the match, with one saying it was Lex Luger, the other saying it was Bret Hart. Ring announcer Howard Finkel declared one wrestler as the winner, followed by the other, and eventually WWF President Jack Tunney came to the ring and had Finkel declare both men as co-winners. The situation regarding the title shot was to be given to the winner remained unresolved, until the following week on Monday Night Raw. And as we all know, that meant Brett competed against Yokozuna in the opening match, and the winner of that title match would go on to face. Oh, sorry, no. Lex Luger would get the first title match halfway through the card against Yokozuna. Whoever won that match would then face the Hitman Bret Hart in the main event. Bret had already competed in the opening match of WrestleMania 10 against his brother, Owen Hart. It was a cracking pay-per-view. It was one of the better Royal Rumbles of that time. It was still new. You know, you think about what we talked about earlier on, the Rumble launched in 1987. As a pay-per-view, there was only the fifth one. And this really, I believe, gave the Rumble some credence. Yes, in 1992, Flair won the title. Get it. In 1993, we had the Yoko winning the title shot. I get it. This one, however, set up at least 4 or 5 matches for WrestleMania 10, with one of them being one of the most iconic matches, of course, the ladder match. If you haven't seen it, check it out. The full Rumble match is on YouTube right now on the WWE account. You can watch it for free, or you can watch it on the WWE Network. All right, that's it for this week's edition of the Squared Circle. Hope you've enjoyed it. Next week, we will be back talking all things Royal Rumble. Again, the results. Plus, we're going to be talking some Dynamite. We're going to be debuting, hopefully, AEW Explosion, which will be a new mini cast coming in the week as well. Thanks for joining me. As always, let me know what you think of the show on Spotify and Amazon by leaving us a review. Comment right here on YouTube and across social media with what you think of the topics we've talked about today. But until next time, I'm Andy Evans. I will see you very soon, and I'll see you at the matches. So long. Bye-bye.